My Spotify kept playing a song I've never heard. The lyrics describe exactly how I die. The song started playing at 2:14 a.m. while I was coding. I didn't think much of it at first because Spotify does weird things sometimes. Autoplays random tracks when your playlist ends, suggests songs based on algorithms nobody understands, but this song wasn't like anything I'd ever heard before. No artist name, no album art, just a title that made my skin crawl. The Last Day of Ethan Kross. My name. My actual name. I thought it was some kind of targeted ad or marketing stunt. Tech companies know everything about us now. They scrape our data and sell it. Someone probably created a custom song generator that pulls your name from your account. Creepy, but explainable. Then the lyrics started. The voice was distorted, robotic almost, but with human inflections that made it worse somehow. Ethan Kross will die at dawn. The car comes fast. He never sees it. The impact breaks him. The pavement drinks his blood. I grabbed my phone so fast I knocked my coffee mug onto my keyboard. Spotify showed the song playing, but when I tried to screenshot it, the app crashed. When I reopened it, the song was gone. My recently played list showed nothing. No history of it ever existing. I searched for the title. Nothing. Searched my name plus song. Nothing. Like it had been completely erased from existence the moment I tried to capture evidence of it. I told myself I was overtired. I'd been pulling all-nighters for a week, trying to finish the software project that was supposed to save my startup. My business partner Caleb kept saying we were one deadline away from securing our Series A funding. One more month of 18-hour days and we'd be millionaires. Sleep deprivation does things to your brain, makes you hear things, see things. I'd been surviving on energy drinks and leftover Chinese food. Hallucinations were probably inevitable. I shut down my computer and went to bed. Tried to sleep. Failed. Kept hearing that distorted voice singing about my death. The car comes fast. He never sees it. I got up at 5 a.m. and made coffee instead of sleeping. My apartment was in downtown Seattle. 5th floor walk-up in a building that should have been condemned decades ago. The rent was astronomical, but it was close to our office, which was really just a converted warehouse space we shared with 3 other startups. I could walk there in 15 minutes, which meant I never needed a car. Never even had a driver's license, actually. Grew up in New York, where nobody drives. Moved to Seattle 3 years ago to launch the company with Caleb, who I'd met at a hackathon. We'd been best friends since, partners in everything, building something from nothing. The song said a car would kill me, but I didn't drive, so it had to be wrong. I walked to work at 6 a.m. like always. The streets were empty, except for homeless people sleeping in doorways and early morning joggers. Nobody paid attention to anyone else. That's how cities work. Anonymity as a lifestyle. I crossed 4 intersections on the way to the office, checked both ways every time like my mom taught me when I was 6. No cars came close to hitting me. By the time I reached the warehouse, I'd almost convinced myself the whole thing had been a stress-induced hallucination. Caleb was already there drinking Red Bull and staring at 3 monitors displaying code. He looked worse than I felt. He didn't look up when I came in, just said we had a problem. The client meeting we'd been preparing for got moved up to this afternoon instead of next week. They wanted to see a working demo in 6 hours. We weren't ready. We were maybe 60% finished. The authentication system still had bugs. The user interface looked like it was designed by someone who hated humans. Caleb said we either pulled off a miracle or we lost the contract and probably the company. I sat down at my desk and started coding. Forgot about the song. Forgot about everything except the screen in front of me and the deadline that was going to make or break our future. 3 hours later, my Spotify started playing again. I hadn't opened it, hadn't touched my phone in an hour, but there it was, that same song. The Last Day of Ethan Kross. Caleb heard it too this time. He looked over at me with confusion on his face and asked what the hell I was listening to. I grabbed my phone and the lyrics were different now, more specific, more detailed. Ethan Kross will die at dawn. He crosses 4th Avenue at exactly 7:14 p.m. The silver sedan runs the red light. Driver doesn't brake. Ethan's skull fractures on impact. He dies before the ambulance arrives. The timestamp on my phone said 9:47 a.m. The song was giving me a countdown. 10 hours until my scheduled death. I showed Caleb the screen, but when he looked at it, the song had vanished again. The app showed I was listening to silence. No track playing. No history. He thought I was pranking him. Said I was too stressed and needed to take a break. Maybe get some actual sleep instead of whatever zombie state I'd been operating in. I insisted it was real. Pulled up my Spotify on the computer. Still nothing. Checked my account settings. Everything normal. No strange devices logged in. No unauthorized access. The song existed only when it wanted to exist, only when I was the only witness. That's when the fear really started setting in. This wasn't a hallucination. Hallucinations don't leave you questioning your sanity while showing you specific details about your death. I spent the next hour trying to find information about the song online, searched every variation I could think of. Personalized death prediction song. Spotify playing songs that don't exist. Music predicting future death. Found some conspiracy theory forums where people claimed AI was becoming sentient and communicating through streaming services. Found some mental health forums where people discussed auditory hallucinations. Nothing that matched what was happening to me. Nothing that explained how a song could know my exact name and predict the specific circumstances of my death hours before it happened. I checked the time. 11:03 a.m. 8 hours and 11 minutes until the song said I'd die. Caleb noticed I wasn't working anymore. Asked if I was having some kind of breakdown. I told him everything. The song appearing at 2 a.m. The lyrics describing my death. The new version with specific details about time and location. He listened without interrupting, which wasn't like him. Caleb always interrupted, always had opinions, always needed to be the smartest person in the room. But this time he just listened with this expression I couldn't read. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. He said his Spotify had been doing weird things too, playing songs he didn't recognize, songs without artist names, songs that disappeared from his history immediately after playing. He pulled up his phone and opened Spotify, scrolled through his recently played list. Everything looked normal to me. Indie rock and electronic music. His usual taste. Then he tilted the screen and I saw something flash for just a second. A song title that vanished as soon as I registered seeing it. The Necessary Sacrifice of Ethan Kross. I asked him what that meant. He said he didn't know. Said he'd been seeing that title pop up randomly for 3 days, but every time he tried to click on it, the app would crash. He thought it was a bug. Some glitch in Spotify's algorithm. But now that I was telling him about my song, he was starting to think it was something else. Something connected. I asked him directly if he knew anything about this. If this was some kind of elaborate prank he'd set up to mess with me. We'd always had that kind of friendship, constantly trying to out-prank each other. He'd once convinced me our office was haunted by setting up speakers that played whispers when I was alone. I'd gotten him back by hacking his dating app to make it seem like he'd matched with his ex-girlfriend. But this felt different, too specific. Too disturbing. He swore he had nothing to do with it, said he was just as freaked out as I was. The fact that both our accounts were showing weird songs with my name in the title meant something bigger was happening, something we didn't understand. The client meeting was at 2 p.m. We had 3 hours to finish the demo, and I couldn't focus on anything except the countdown in my head. 7:14 p.m., 4th Avenue, silver sedan. I pulled up Google Maps and looked at 4th Avenue. It was 6 blocks from our office. The intersection where the song said I'd die was right outside a grocery store I went to sometimes. Normal street, normal intersection, traffic light that worked fine. Nothing about it seemed dangerous. I'd crossed that exact intersection hundreds of times, never had a close call, never even had to run to avoid a car. The song had to be wrong, had to be someone messing with my head. Caleb suggested we cancel the meeting, said my mental state was more important than the contract, but I refused. We'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much. This meeting represented everything we'd been building toward for 3 years. I wasn't going to let some inexplicable Spotify glitch destroy our company. I told Caleb I'd be fine, told him I'd avoid 4th Avenue after the meeting, take a different route home, stay in the office until midnight if I had to. The song gave a specific time and place. All I had to do was not be at that time and place. Simple, easy, problem solved. He didn't look convinced, but he nodded, and we both went back to coding. At 1:30 p.m., my Spotify opened by itself again. This time I was ready. I started screen recording on my phone before looking at what was playing. The song had changed again. The Last Day of Ethan Kross. Final warning mix. The lyrics were even more detailed now. Ethan thinks he can avoid 4th Avenue. Ethan thinks he controls his fate. But Caleb needs the insurance money. Caleb already sold the company. Caleb planned everything. I stopped breathing. Read the lyrics 3 times to make sure I understood what they were saying. The song was accusing Caleb, my best friend, my business partner, the person I trusted more than anyone. The screen recording captured everything. The song playing, the lyrics displayed on screen, proof that this wasn't a hallucination. I looked up at Caleb across the office. He was staring at his monitors, but I could see tension in his shoulders, like he was waiting for something. I asked him casually if he wanted to grab lunch before the meeting. He said no without looking at me, said he wasn't hungry. I pressed him, said we should talk about the client pitch, make sure we were aligned on what to present. He finally looked at me and his expression was completely blank, empty, like looking at a stranger. He said we'd talk after the meeting, said he had some calls to make first. Then he put in his headphones and turned back to his screens, shutting me out. My best friend of 3 years, suddenly acting like I didn't exist. I pulled up our company's financial records while Caleb wasn't paying attention. We had shared access to everything. Complete transparency was part of our founding agreement. But when I tried to log into our bank account, the password had been changed. Tried our investor portal, password changed. Tried our corporate email, changed. Every single system I should have had access to was suddenly locked. Caleb had systematically cut me out of our own company. I checked the date. The password changes had all happened 3 days ago. The same time Caleb said he started seeing that song about the necessary sacrifice of Ethan Cross. This wasn't coincidence. This was planned. I confronted him directly, walked over to his desk, and asked why he'd changed all the passwords. He didn't even try to hide it. Just said he'd been meaning to talk to me about it. Said the company wasn't working out the way we'd planned. Said our Series A funding had fallen through and we were basically bankrupt. Said he'd found a buyer willing to acquire our technology, but only if he was the sole owner. No co-founders, no complications. He'd negotiated the deal weeks ago, been planning to buy me out with a small severance package. But then, he realized the life insurance policy we'd taken out on each other when we founded the company. Standard startup practice. Partners insure each other in case something happens. Caleb's policy on me was worth $2 million. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Asked him if he was seriously suggesting what I thought he was suggesting. He didn't answer directly. Just said sometimes sacrifices had to be made for the greater good. Said I'd understand eventually, that this was business, not personal. I backed away from his desk slowly. My hands were shaking. Caleb stood up and I saw he was holding something behind his back. A tire iron from the emergency kit we kept in the office. He'd been planning this, waiting for the right moment. The song wasn't predicting my future. It was exposing a conspiracy. My best friend was going to murder me and make it look like an accident. I ran, grabbed my backpack and phone and bolted for the door. Caleb didn't chase me immediately, just called out that I couldn't avoid this, that everything was already in motion, that I should just accept it and make it easy on both of us. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, 5 flights down as fast as I could move, burst out onto the street and started running. No direction, no plan, just away. I could hear Caleb behind me, his footsteps on the pavement, his voice calling my name, telling me to stop running, telling me this didn't have to be violent. He'd make it quick if I just cooperated. I cut through an alley between 2 buildings, jumped a fence, came out on 3rd Avenue, checked my phone. 2:17 p.m. The client meeting had started without us. Our company was finished regardless of whether I lived or died, but at least if I lived, I could report Caleb to the police, could expose what he'd planned, could get some kind of justice even if it didn't save the company. I pulled up my screen recording of the Spotify song and uploaded it to 3 different cloud storage services: email, Dropbox, Google Drive. If something happened to me, there'd be evidence. Digital breadcrumbs leading back to Caleb. My phone started ringing. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. A woman's voice said she was Detective Linda Okoye with Seattle PD. Said she'd received a concerning report about me from my business partner. Said Caleb had called 911 claiming I was having a mental health crisis, claiming I'd threatened him with violence, claiming I'd been acting erratically for days, and he was worried I might hurt myself or others. I tried to explain what was really happening, but it sounded insane even to my own ears. A song on Spotify predicted my death. My business partner is trying to kill me for insurance money. The detective's tone shifted from concerned to skeptical. She asked where I was. Said officers were en route to perform a wellness check. I hung up. Realized Caleb had outplayed me again. By calling the police first, he'd established the narrative. Unstable business partner having a breakdown. If something happened to me now, it would look like suicide or an accident. Nobody would believe he'd orchestrated it. I was alone. Completely alone. No family in Seattle. No close friends except Caleb, who was trying to kill me. No evidence that would convince anyone except a screen recording of a song that would probably be dismissed as doctored footage. The time was 3:45 p.m. 3 hours and 29 minutes until the song said I'd die at 4th Avenue and exactly 7:14 p.m. I needed to find somewhere safe. Somewhere public with witnesses. Somewhere Caleb couldn't get to me. I walked into a Starbucks 3 blocks away from our office, ordered a coffee I didn't want, sat in the corner with my back to the wall where I could see both exits, opened my laptop and started documenting everything, wrote a detailed account of what had happened, attached the screen recording, drafted an email to send to the police, the local news, anyone who might listen. If I died today, at least there'd be a trail. At least someone might question the circumstances. At least Caleb wouldn't get away with it completely. My Spotify opened by itself again. I wanted to throw my laptop across the room, but I forced myself to watch. The song playing now had a different title, The Truth About Ethan Kross. The lyrics were sung by a woman's voice this time, clear and haunting. Ethan Kross embezzled $400,000 from his own company. Ethan Kross falsified financial records. Ethan Kross planned to disappear to Mexico with the money. Caleb discovered the truth 3 days ago. Caleb confronted him. Ethan threatened to kill Caleb. This is self-defense, not murder. I stared at the screen in shock. The song was rewriting the narrative, creating a completely fictional backstory that would justify my death. I checked our company's financial records that I'd downloaded to my laptop before Caleb locked me out. Searched for any evidence of embezzlement. Found nothing. Every transaction was accounted for. Every expense legitimate. But then I noticed something strange. There were transactions I didn't remember approving. Small amounts. $2,000 here. $3,500 there. Dozens of them over the past 6 months. All categorized as contractor payments or software licenses. All going to accounts I didn't recognize. I added them up. $427,000 total. Someone had been systematically draining our company and making it look like normal business expenses. I cross-referenced the transaction dates with my calendar. Every single suspicious payment happened on days when I'd been out of the office. Days when Caleb had been alone with access to our accounts. He'd been embezzling from our own company and setting me up to take the fall. The insurance money wasn't his only angle. He'd already stolen nearly $500,000. My death would just be the final piece, the ultimate cover-up. If I died under mysterious circumstances, the police would investigate our finances. They'd find the embezzled money. They'd find a trail leading back to accounts that could be connected to me with the right fabricated evidence. Case closed. Troubled founder steals from his company and commits suicide or dies trying to flee. I called the detective back, got her voicemail, left a message explaining everything, the embezzlement, the insurance policy, the songs on Spotify that kept revealing pieces of the conspiracy, begged her to look into Caleb before it was too late, sent her the screen recordings and the financial records, knew she probably wouldn't listen, probably thought I was exactly what Caleb had described, a paranoid founder having a breakdown, but I had to try. Had to create as much documentation as possible before 7:14 p.m., before the car came, before the silver sedan that didn't exist yet, but somehow felt inevitable. The Starbucks started filling up with the after-work crowd, office workers ordering complicated drinks, students setting up laptops, couples on dates, normal people living normal lives having no idea that someone in the corner was counting down the minutes until his predicted death. I checked the time compulsively. 5:33 p.m., 1 hour and 41 minutes. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You can't hide in public forever. Eventually you'll have to move. Eventually you'll make a mistake. This doesn't end until you accept the inevitable. Caleb had found me somehow, was watching me, probably from across the street or through the window. I looked around the Starbucks trying to spot him, saw nothing obvious, no one paying unusual attention to me. But that didn't mean he wasn't there. Didn't mean he wasn't tracking my phone or using some app to monitor my location. I powered down my phone completely, removed the battery, left it on the table and walked out the back exit, emerged into an alley that smelled like garbage and rotting food, checked both directions. Empty, except for a homeless man sleeping against a dumpster. I headed south, away from our office, away from 4th Avenue, away from the intersection where the song said I'd die. But as I walked, I realized the problem. Every route away from 4th Avenue eventually required me to cross other streets, other intersections, other places where a car could hit me. The song said 4th Avenue at 7:14 p.m., but what if that was just the most likely scenario? What if my death was inevitable regardless of where I went? What if I was fighting against predetermined fate? I stopped walking and leaned against a brick wall. My chest hurt. Breathing was difficult. Panic attack, maybe. I'd never had one before, but I'd heard they felt like dying, like your body shutting down from pure fear. I forced myself to breathe slowly, in through my nose, out through my mouth. Count to 4. Again. My Spotify opened by itself on my laptop, which was in my backpack. I could hear the song playing through the fabric, muffled but distinct. I pulled out the laptop and saw a new track. Final hour of Ethan Cross. The lyrics were a countdown now. 58 minutes remaining. Ethan runs, but there's nowhere to go. The car finds him regardless. The timeline doesn't change. The outcome was always certain. I slammed the laptop shut, but the song kept playing. The speakers worked even when the screen was off. The volume increased. Louder, louder. People walking past started staring at me. The crazy man whose laptop was blasting music about his own death. I pulled the battery from the laptop. The music stopped. Silence except for city traffic and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I sat down on the curb and put my head in my hands. Tried to think. Tried to find some way out of this. But every scenario ended the same way. Caleb had planned this too carefully. Had too much money to cover his tracks. Had the police already believing I was unstable. Had created a financial trail that implicated me in embezzlement. Had the insurance policy that gave him motive to want me dead. Even if I survived tonight, he'd try again tomorrow. Or next week. Or next month. I was already dead. Just didn't know it yet. A car pulled up next to me. Silver sedan. My heart stopped. This was it. This was the moment. But the window rolled down and an elderly woman leaned out asking if I needed a ride somewhere. Said I looked lost. Said she was heading to the community center for her book club if I needed to go that direction. Just a nice stranger trying to help. Not an assassin. Not fate coming to kill me. I thanked her and said I was fine. She drove away and I checked the time on a store window display. 6:39 p.m. 35 minutes until the song's predicted death time. I was 11 blocks from 4th Avenue. If I stayed here, I'd be safe. If I didn't move, I couldn't be hit by a car. But then, I thought about what happens after tonight. If I survived past 7:14 p.m., what changed? Caleb still wanted me dead. Still had all the pieces in place. The only difference was, I'd have proof the song was wrong. Proof that fate could be changed. Or maybe proof that I'd misunderstood what the song was telling me. Maybe the death wasn't scheduled for today. Maybe it was a warning about what would happen eventually if I didn't act. Maybe I had more time than I thought. Or maybe I was rationalizing, trying to find hope in a hopeless situation. My phone buzzed. I'd forgotten I'd put the battery back in. Another text from the unknown number. You're 11 blocks from 4th Avenue. Stay where you are for 29 more minutes and you might survive. But then what? You've already lost everything. Company gone. Reputation destroyed. Best friend turned enemy. Money stolen. Police think you're unstable. No one will believe you. Even if you live, you're already dead. The text was right. Everything I'd built was gone. 3 years of my life destroyed in one day. But at least I'd still be alive. Still breathing. Still able to fight back somehow. Detective Okoye called. I answered immediately. She said she'd reviewed my voicemail and the evidence I'd sent. Said she'd also done some research into Caleb and found concerning information. Said there was an active investigation into him from 2 years ago. Another business partner who died in a suspicious car accident. No charges filed because there wasn't enough evidence, but the case was never officially closed. She said she was taking my claims seriously. Said she was sending officers to bring me in for protection and to question Caleb. Said I should stay exactly where I was and not move. Help was coming. I felt relief flood through me. Someone believed me. Someone was actually going to help. But then I heard something in the detective's voice. A slight tremor. Fear maybe. Or uncertainty. I asked her what the timeline was. How long until officers arrived? She hesitated before answering. Said they were tied up with a major incident across town. Multiple car accident. All available units responding. She could probably get someone to me in 45 minutes. Maybe an hour. I checked the time. 7:02 p.m. 12 minutes until the song's predicted death. The officers wouldn't arrive in time. I thanked her and hung up. Started walking. No destination. Just movement. Staying still felt like waiting to die. I headed away from 4th Avenue. Took random turns. Zigzagged through alleys. Tried to be unpredictable. If Caleb was tracking me somehow, I'd make it harder. I emerged onto a residential street I didn't recognize. Small houses with overgrown lawns. Kids playing basketball in a driveway. Normal neighborhood where nothing bad ever happened. I checked the time. 7:11 p.m. 3 minutes. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode. I sat down on someone's front steps. Decided I'd just wait here. Let the predicted time pass. Prove the song wrong. A car turned onto the street. Silver sedan. Moving fast. Too fast for a residential area. I stood up and backed toward the house. The car accelerated. Aimed directly at me. I dove sideways and hit the grass as the car jumped the curb. Missed me by inches. Crashed into a parked truck. The driver's side door opened and Caleb stumbled out. blood on his forehead, rage in his eyes. He was holding something, the tire iron from the office. He started walking toward me, limping, determined, said this was supposed to be clean, an accident, no witnesses, but I'd made it complicated, made him improvise. He'd just have to beat me to death and make it look like we fought. And I fell. The family whose house I was in front of came outside, the father holding a baseball bat, the mother on the phone with 911, kids crying. Caleb stopped walking, realized he had an audience, turned and ran back to his car. The engine started, but smoke poured from the hood. The crash had damaged something essential. He abandoned the car and ran down the street, disappeared around a corner. I collapsed onto the grass, started laughing hysterically. The time on my phone said 7:14 p.m., the exact moment the song had predicted my death. I'd survived. Barely, but I'd survived. The police arrived 6 minutes later, took my statement, took the family's statement, put out an alert for Caleb. Detective Okoye showed up 20 minutes after that, interviewed me at the scene. I showed her everything. The screen recordings of the songs, the financial records showing the embezzlement, the texts from Caleb. She listened to all of it and said this was enough to arrest him when they found him. Said the attempted vehicular homicide combined with the financial evidence painted a clear picture. Said I'd be safe now. I asked her about the songs, how they'd predicted everything. She didn't have an answer. Said maybe it was coincidence. Maybe my subconscious picked up on clues I didn't consciously notice. Maybe the songs were my brain's way of warning myself, but I knew that wasn't true. The songs had been too specific, too accurate. They'd known things I couldn't have known. Caleb's plans, the exact time and location, the silver sedan. It wasn't coincidence or subconscious warning. It was something else. Something I didn't understand and probably never would. Detective Okoye said I should go stay with family for a few days until they caught Caleb. I told her I didn't have family in Seattle. She arranged for me to stay in a hotel under police protection. 2 officers stationed outside my door. Safe, but isolated. I spent the night staring at my phone, waiting for Spotify to open by itself again, waiting for a new song to start playing. But nothing happened. The app stayed closed, silent. They found Caleb the next morning. He'd broken into our office overnight. Police discovered him there when the building owner called about a break-in. He'd been trying to access our servers, delete evidence of the embezzlement, make it look like I'd been the one stealing money. But the police had already seized everything as evidence. He'd been too late. He was arrested and charged with attempted murder, embezzlement, insurance fraud, and about a dozen other charges. His lawyer tried to argue that I was the unstable one, that Caleb had been trying to stop me from hurting myself, but the physical evidence contradicted that story. The car crash, the tire iron, the texts. It all pointed to premeditation. The trial took 8 months. Caleb's defense tried every angle, claimed I'd hacked his phone to send those texts, claimed I'd fabricated the financial records, claimed the songs on Spotify were elaborate deepfakes I'd created to frame him, but the prosecution had too much evidence. The family who'd witnessed the car crash, Detective Okoye's testimony about the previous suspicious death of Caleb's former business partner, the digital forensics showing he'd been systematically embezzling for months. The jury convicted him on all counts. 43 years in prison. He'll be 70 years old when he gets out, if he lives that long. I sold what was left of our company's technology to pay off debts. Made about $30,000 after everything was settled, barely enough to survive on for a few months. I moved to Portland, started over, got a job doing contract software development. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. I deleted my Spotify account, couldn't bring myself to use the app anymore. Every time I thought about opening it, I'd remember those songs, the predictions that had saved my life by exposing the conspiracy. I never figured out how they'd known, never found any explanation that made sense. The police investigated every angle, checked if Caleb had somehow hacked my account to plant the songs as part of some psychological warfare tactic. But the digital forensics showed no evidence of unauthorized access. The songs had appeared from nowhere and disappeared back to nowhere. Sometimes late at night, I wonder if I'm actually dead. If the car did hit me that day and everything since has been some kind of dying dream. My brain creating an alternate reality where I survived while my actual body lies broken on that residential street. But then I'll feel pain from a stubbed toe or taste coffee that's too bitter, and it feels too real to be imaginary. I think I'm alive. I think I survived. I think the songs were real, and I just happened to be the recipient of some unexplainable warning system embedded in streaming algorithms. Or maybe I'm just trying to rationalize the irrational, trying to find meaning in chaos. Either way, I'm here, still breathing, still fighting, still trying to understand what happened and why. And that's all anyone can do. Survive the days we're given and try to make sense of the impossible things we experience along the way. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.